Welcome to Boring on Purpose. I'm Elle, and tonight we're talking about Clark County Sheriff, or rather former Sheriff, Jamie Noel. Jamie Noel, before it's all over, would end up indicted on 31 counts of theft, tax evasion, ghost employment, misuse of a lot of funds. And before it's all over with, his wife, one of his daughters, and his baby mama and a couple of other cohorts would be charged as his co-defendants. So give me about 21 seconds and we'll jump right into it. Okay, so Sheriff Jamie Noel, in a span of approximately 5 years, would spend $4.4 million on average, about $4.4 million of the public's money. Noel served as sheriff 2 terms, 2015 to 2022, and he was going to, I believe, make a collateral move into politics, starting with the city council. And Noel, if you'll see, is right there in the middle in orange in handcuffs. And the lady with the short black hair, her name is Brittany Faree. And Brittany Faree has a son with Jamie Noel. On the right of Jamie Noel is his wife, Misty. Misty and Jamie Noel have two teenage daughters. And below them is their daughter, Jamie and Misty's daughter, Casey. And all of all four of these people would be indicted by the state of Indiana and charged with multiple counts of theft and tax evasion. Now, this case ticked off a judge so bad that he actually broke his gavel. How did, in a small county like Clark County, how is it that Sheriff Jamie Noel was able to live so lavishly on a sheriff's salary and no one gets suspicious? Well, one theory is that Jamie Noel, well, he was very, very politically connected. He was connected to former Governor Mike Pence, who is now also former Vice President Pence, Vice President to Trump during Trump's first term. He was invited to Trump's inauguration by Pence, and he worked on political campaigns. He donated $20,000 at a time to political campaigns. He had a relationship with Indiana Governor Holcomb and several members of the city council he was connected to. And one of the people that he was connected to on the city council was his son's mother, Brittany Faree. Now, I don't call her a baby mama out of disrespect, but you really have to wonder, with him having two college age daughters with his wife. And just listen to Brittany Faree when she was being sentenced.
Plea agreement calls for a fully suspended sentence. Sentence of 2 years with all of it suspended. Tell me why you think I should accept that, please.
Because I'm a single mom taking care of our son that we have. And I'm obviously the only person that's taking care of our son. I have no prior history of ever being in trouble. I don't even have a warning for a traffic ticket. And that is all I have, sir.
What have you learned?
Not to trust somebody just because they're in law enforcement and that you hear for them.
Now, hopefully the volume's working. Hopefully my mic is working. But Brittany Faree says that she has a young son to the judge that apparently she's the only one taking care of. Well, Brittany Faree received over $82,000 of public funds for child support. And she also took at least three trips. She also took at least three trips with Sheriff. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that the sound is good. And Brittany Faree also took three trips at least to good old New Orleans with Sheriff while he was Sheriff Jamie Noel. And I wonder if Jamie Noel's wife didn't find out about that until the investigation. So, how did it all come crumbling down? Well, in 2022, Clark County gets a new sheriff. And the new sheriff says, "Listen, I've been going through some things, and the funds look a little hinky." And so the new sheriff called the Indiana State Police. That was 2022. In 2023, the sheriff's house was raided. Over 70 warrants would be issued, and three city council members, Brittany Faree, the baby mama, she was a member of the city council, and two other members of the city council would be investigated. Now, one member of the city council was said to have spent $111.90, and that it was actually for the nonprofit. See, besides being politically connected, while he was sheriff, Jamie Noel started a nonprofit. And this nonprofit was to serve Clark County and surrounding counties, an emergency service, EMS New Chapel. And it is the city council that funds EMS New Chapel. And even though EMS New Chapel at one point was funded over $700,000, then 9 months later was funded over $1 million, the sheriff is saying that he doesn't have enough money to give firefighters the equipment that they need. Not only that, but the sheriff has city employees that work at the jail working on his personal property. No, it's not. Sadly, this is not surprising. Most corruption, even election fraud, will be found at the sheriff's level. So the official name for the nonprofit that Sheriff Noel started was called Utica Township Volunteer Firefighters Association, also known as New Chapel EMS. That is a mouthful, so we're going to stick with New Chapel EMS. Now, the sheriff, listen, there's a reason why the good Lord don't bless a lot of people to be multimillionaires, because the sheriff bought over 40 vehicles. He bought aircraft, a small airplane, plane, train, automobiles. The man bought a locomotive. Now, eventually, all of this would be auctioned off, but you have to wonder, what did he convince people that he needed a locomotive for? The automobiles that he bought, they were not appropriate for emergency services. I would think you'd buy ambulance, fire truck, right? No, 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 no. These are classic vehicles, and he's trading these classic vehicles and selling these classic vehicles, and he's pocketing the money. Now, there's Sheriff Jamie Noel in his glory, and there's Sheriff Jamie Noel at his sentencing. Now, I think that the tears are really because of that 31 count indictment. And why tax evasion? Well, the sheriff and his wife, they filed joint tax returns, and according to the IRS, there were a couple of years that they should have reported well over $3 million in income. Now, I'm going to tell you, the IRS says that it taxes income from any source derived. Any source derived. If you find $1 or a quarter on the sidewalk, the IRS says, listen, we can tax that. We don't care if you found it. It's income, we can tax it. So you rob a bank and you get, $50,000 from robbing the bank, then the IRS says it doesn't matter. We didn't say from all legal sources derived. We meant we said any source derived. And we all know that there's a very famous gangster that went down for tax evasion. Now, their Sheriff Jamie Noel, look, he's even there. That's a congressman. Look to your right. You guys recognize that congressman? Because I do. Thank you. Hit the like button. It won't hit you back. So, Sheriff Jamie Noel, he gets he gets a $1.5 million bond. He pays $75,000 cash to get out on bond. You gotta wonder, right, where the cash came from. And the judge, well, let me let you all hear from Special Judge Medlock. I like this judge, how he deals with Jamie Noel when he decides that Noel violated his terms of release out on bond. Because, see, Noel was supposed to turn over every firearm that he owned. Now, when you own over 80 firearms, it's possible to miss one or two, which is what Jamie's defense was. But I'll let you guys listen for yourself.
I told Mr. Noel, don't do anything stupid. Do not try to deceive me, defy me. You will not like the consequences. Today is that day.
With a vicious swing, Judge Larry Medlock sent Jamie Noel back to jail. He swung so hard, he broke the gavel block up on his bench.
You don't interpret the law. You don't enforce the law. You're not above the law.
Noel was originally arrested on November 9th and told to turn over all firearms except for one shotgun. He called brother-in-law Bradley Kramer and another man named Charlie Moon and asked them to go through his house and pick up his guns. He gave brother-in-law Bradley Kramer and another man named Charlie Moon and asked them to go through his house and pick up his guns. He gave directions over the phone.
I collected the guns that I saw, yes, sir.
And you felt like you got them all?
I felt like I got the guns where he directed me to find them.
He called brother-in-law Bradley Kramer and another man named Charlie Moon and asked them to go through his house and pick up his guns. He gave directions over the phone.
Not getting all those firearms out of the house.
The guns that I saw, yes, sir.
And you felt like you got them all?
Noel's friend and his brother-in-law.
I felt like I got the guns where
this is the last clip
he
from
directed
court.
me to
The
find
judge
them.
did actually break the gavel, but he told Noel, don't play with me. I told you, don't play with me. When I granted you a bond and I gave you conditions for the bond, and you decided to play with me. Now listen to the end, because the judge giving him 60 days, I think it's for a reason, and I think the judge actually has a sense of humor.
Plea agreement calls for a fully suspended sentence. Sentence of 2 years with all of it suspended. Tell me why you think I should accept that, please.
Because I'm a single mom taking care of our son that we have. And I'm obviously the only person that's taking care of our son. I have no prior history of ever being in trouble. I don't even have a warning for a traffic ticket.
Wait a minute, wrong clip.
And that is all I have, sir.
What have you learned?
Indiana State Police later found 2 Smith & Wesson pistols while serving a search warrant on March 13th. They were still in factory packaging.
Well, when I moved the chair out,
Inside that box was 2 Smith & Wesson boxes.
In closing arguments, Noel's attorney said it was not willful intent to violate a court order.
Do people make mistakes? Of course they do. But we know that those guns have been purchased since 2017 and they're in the same box, haven't been disturbed, haven't been out.
But Medlock was unmoved.
Every time I go into court, I hear, I didn't know it was there. I didn't know it was there. Take him into custody.
As for how many days?
You know what I think the answer is? 60 days in.
Perhaps a reference to the A&E show called 60 Days In that Noel did in 2016. In Jeffersonville, Travis Breeze for the WHAS 11 night team on your side.
I think that, listen, Brittany Faree, I think, yeah, she knew where the money was coming from. She knows the sheriff's salary. And like I said, she got over $82,000 in child support, and she got a couple of vacations out of this. And, there was more than the child support money. Now, Noel's daughter, Casey, I really have to wonder if Casey is very angry at her father because, Casey says the judge asked Casey if she's learned anything. And Casey says, yeah, she learned not to trust everybody, even if they're family. And the judge asked the special prosecutor how they came up with the plea deal. Now, the baby mama, Brittany Faree, she got 2 years probation. Daughter Misty, she got 6 years. She was charged with 10 counts. And she was accused I'm sorry, Misty is the wife, but the daughter, Casey, she was charged with 9 counts. And the special prosecutor said her age, the fact that she was involved in this with both her mother and her father, and that she does not have a criminal record. And the judge gave Casey a warning. And he told her, I want you to learn from this, and I want you to move beyond it, basically. Go out and have a good life. But if you haven't learned from it, we'll see each other. And I really just don't think that this is the judge that you want to play with. This all went down 2024, 2025. Now, in one of the raids on his house, on Sheriff Noel's house, $50,000 was found in a bedroom dresser drawer. In the basement, $5,000 was found. That tells me that Joel liked to keep that money close, don't you think? Joel really liked to keep that money close. $50,000 in a bedroom drawer, $5,000 in the basement. Now, Brittany, who was on the city council that approved funds for the nonprofit that Sheriff Noel started, Brittany, the police served search warrants on Brittany on her home and her cell phone. And they go through her cell phone and they can see where she's texting Sheriff Noel back and forth talking about the investigation. And one of the text messages actually said, "How much for me to go away?" I think Brittany was saying that she would take money to disappear because she spent the least, so to speak. The sheriff and his wife, Misty, the sheriff's wife, she was accused alone of spending over $600,000. Okay. So I believe that Brittany Faree, who said she'd known Sheriff Noel since she was a teenager, that she was interested in politics and they were both Republicans. And usually I don't like mentioning political parties when I'm talking about corruption, because I've done stories where there's been corruption on both sides of the aisle. Wherever there are people, you will find corruption. People and a lot of money and easy access to it. And a nonprofit is a really, really convenient and easy way for people to steal large sums of money. Now, Casey, she actually spent Casey, the blonde at the bottom, the daughter of Misty and Joel, she actually spent 9 months in jail. And she was said to have spent money on one of the credit cards. Now, listen, there was over $700,000 charged on one credit card alone. And she actually received, I think, a total of 5 years, probably will serve half of that time. She gets a credit for 9 months. Everybody pleaded guilty. Sheriff Noel pleaded guilty to 27 of 31 counts. Casey, she pleaded guilty to nine felony charges. And Misty, Misty had 10 felony charges, the wife, and she received 6 years. And Sheriff Noel, most reports say that he received 12 years. I saw one report that said 5, but everybody will serve about half of that time. And we know that Brittany Fareed, the baby mama, like I said, she got 2 years probation. So the Noel spent over $180,000 on their two daughters' college tuition and tuition related items. She was interested in politics and money. I agree. I agree. And Sheriff Noel had power in Clark County. Clark County is small. It's on the very southern border of Indiana, right across the bridge from the great city of Louisville, Kentucky. And it's actually Louisville who did the most press on this. And I'm really shocked that this did not go national. I'm really, really shocked that this didn't go national. I thought I had a picture of the locomotive. If I do, I can't find it. You see that the cars that the sheriff bought with public funds while telling firefighters that they have to use outdated equipment. Firefighters said that there were times where there was only one firefighter on duty. I think about another small town in Indiana where a house caught fire, the floor of 4. And these little girls who died in that fire, you can see where those firemen did everything to try and save those children. But while Sheriff Noel is taking vacations with his wife and daughter, New York, Florida, New Orleans, then taking vacations with his son's mother, they went to New Orleans a couple of times, like I said. There might have been only one, there were times there were only one firefighter on duty. These don't look like the type of vehicles that one would buy for an EMS service. I would think that EMS is emergency response. Where are the ambulances? These are classic cars, selling, trading, and pocketing the money. Now, investigators thought that he bought Brittany Farrar. Investigators, thought that he bought Brittany Farrar BMW, but she says, no, 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 no. I was in a car wreck. I got some money from insurance, and that's how I got the BMW. Now, there's Misty hugging her daughter Casey before Misty pleads guilty. When Misty pleaded guilty, she said that I will survive this and I'll be back out to help my daughters. The judge told Misty that while she was in prison, he wanted her to think about how she had been living like a queen off of life saving resources. I don't really think the judge could have put it any better. Misty spent over $600,000 on manicures, pedicures, furniture, clothing. I agree. Had there been any deaths because firefighters did not have enough equipment, enough the right equipment, or enough personnel, yeah, I agree. The sheriff should have been charged. He should have been charged criminally. Thank goodness, out of all of the media that I found on this case, mostly by Kentucky media, I didn't hear of any tragedies happening. Now, the nonprofit, New Chapel EMS, did file bankruptcy. Not only did they file bankruptcy, but they were able to auction off a lot of what the sheriff had bought. You guys hear that clip? The two guns that they found that were still in the house, they were still in the original packaging. It's not that, under the law, a legal law abiding American who's not felonized can't can't have 82 or 83 guns. But you just got to wonder why in Little Clark County, the sheriff has an arsenal. And the judge told him, turn over all of the weapons, which is not abnormal when you're out on bond, but you can keep a shotgun because in this country, we have the right to self-defense. But we know that didn't happen. His bond was revoked. And I really wonder if his daughter Casey spent 9 months in jail because, see, Sheriff Noel was able to pay $75,000 cash bond. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that was with stolen money, public funds. But Casey, when she pleads guilty and when she's sentenced, she says she gets 9 months credit because she's been sitting in jail all that time. My guess is because the state came along and froze all of the funds, froze everything. You couldn't tell at some point what was the sheriff's personal money and what came from public funds. Now, listen, the sheriff also engaged in ghost employment. Okay. And one of those was his brother-in-law, Bradley Kramer. And Bradley Kramer, when he was a county jailer, was dating the sheriff's sister. And he eventually married the sheriff's sister, becoming Noel's brother-in-law. And Noel brings him on to the sheriff's department, which makes him eligible for the sheriff department's pension plan. So Sheriff Noel altered documents as to how long his brother-in-law Bradley Kramer had worked for the sheriff department, making him pretty much almost immediately making him immediately eligible to get in on the pension plan. And Kramer submits the documents. He knows the judge told the wife, Misty, you knowingly spent stolen money. Misty worked for the nonprofit. The daughter, she worked for the nonprofit. And Bradley Kramer is accused, right? You submitted forms that you knew were altered. You knew you weren't eligible for the pension plan. Now he moves up in the ranks pretty quickly once he gets in at the sheriff's department. And he retired in 2023 as a deputy sergeant after making $68,981 in 2022. That's a lot of money for a deputy sheriff in a small county like Clark County. Now, you've got a couple of other people on the city council with Brittany, who is okaying these public funds to be transferred into New Chapel EMS. And like I said, one of them, bless his heart, he was investigated, and Matt Owen. He spent $111.90 for the nonprofit. Kevin Wilkerson, on the other hand, spent over $279,000, and $41,000 of that was for personal use. And Wilkerson claims that he thought that money was just gifts from the sheriff because one gets rich by just being a sheriff, right? And keep in mind, like I said, the sheriff was trying to make a lateral move to the city council. So while everyone else is struggling to pay their children's college tuition, the sheriff and his wife, spent $180,000 on their daughter's tuition from public funds, college textbooks, other tuition related items. The cheapest a cheap college textbook is $80. That's a cheap college textbook. My guess is they had everything they needed. You say, I wonder, did they lose all of their pensions upon conviction? Well, the brother-in-law, he got a pension that he was not ever supposed to get. The sheriff, I didn't read whether or not he got to keep his pension, but he has restitution to pay in the millions of dollars. And there was talk about how the sheriff ruled his family with an iron fist. And so Casey, the sheriff's daughter, her attorney said, we felt like we had a good case for trial. Now, if the defense was going to be the sheriff ruled his family with an iron fist, you're telling me that he forced you, Casey, to go out and spend over $100,000 of public funds? Because the credit cards were in the nonprofit's name, not the sheriff's name. And I think that she was old enough to know that you don't spend nonprofit money on personal use. Just like Brittany knew, the baby mama knew, she said that the 3 trips that she and the judge took were all related to business of the sheriff's office and of the city council. Well, like I said, she pleaded guilty as well. A load of crap. A load of crap. And, you know, like I said, what does one do with an automotive? Now, Casey, a young woman, has over $113,000 to pay back in restitution. What a way to begin life as a young person, college age. So, oh yeah, I told you guys about so you saw the pole barn, and I don't know how much the county netted from selling everything from auctioning off everything that it could. I have to wonder though, who needed a locomotive. Yeah, they're playing deaf, dumb, and blind, but none of them wanted to go to trial in front of Judge Medlock. Everybody pleaded guilty. Wilkerson, a member of the city council, I didn't chase down. There was just so much. I didn't chase down if he's been adjudicated or not. But my guess is his best bet is to follow suit. But everybody pretty much except Brittany, the baby mama, had to do jail time. The people who spent the most money had to do jail time. So in a matter of 5 years, $4.4 million. The sheriff, he also bought, what is it, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, clothes. Well, the sheriff would invite his friends to the cigar lounge. And of course, he paid for everything. I really think that everybody there had to know that he was siphoning public funds from New Chapel EMS. But was it his political connections, or was it benefiting, from being his friend? If you work for the sheriff's office and the sheriff asks you to do personal work at his home, what do you do? Do you make an anonymous call to the Indiana State Police? Apparently not. They just all did the work. I wonder how much they got paid. So I'll end with this. Misty and Casey were arrested over the weekend on a Friday. No bail. So they had to wait to the next week or two till they had their pretrial arraignment to get bail. And here it is. Sheriff Noel was able to pay 75,000 cash to get right out of jail. But yeah, that's Paul Ryan he's over there with. And you have to wonder, did that influence the sheriff making these really big political donations, hobnobbing? Paul Ryan reportedly comes from a wealthy family. Trump reportedly is a billionaire. He was at the inauguration. So yeah, I agree. The tears are for the jail time, knowing that your wife and your daughter and your baby mama are all being adjudicated. The wife and the daughter had to do jail time. And serving 50% of a prison sentence, being in one day in jail. 1 day in jail is not a picnic to me. 31 counts, over 70 warrants. And thank you for coming in and supporting the live. So I'll leave you all with this. The sheriff might have ran his family with an iron fist. I don't know. But he did not force his wife, like the judge said, to live like a queen and to spend public funds on manicures, pedicures, new furniture. I wonder how expensive the furniture was. Almost $200,000 in her children's tuition. Beauty products. I'm sure that she had the best, most expensive makeup and hairstylist in the county. I'm sure she probably was wearing very expensive shoes. But that 31 count indictment, yeah, that is the real reason for the tears. So I thank you all for stopping by. We'll say goodbye to Sheriff Noel, who's doing prison time. His wife, they're currently in prison, and his daughter. And if you come by this live stream, do me a favor, hit the like button. Like I said, it won't hit you back. And thanks again for joining me.